It's been a long time since I've recorded a mental health vlog. Wanted to record for like the last few weeks, maybe the last month. As things becoming more difficult for me, and there's just a lot of things going on in my head that I thought recording would help. I've not really been able to journal, and so in the past, I think when I've struggled with that, then like recording on here has been one way just to get it off my chest or get things out of my head, and also get perspective on things as well. I think there's something in talking, the act of talking, that can help with that, and just the same as when writing in a journal, that can also be a help, that uses different parts of our brain, I guess. It just feels like sort of writing about emotions and trying to convey that is just too taxing for me at the moment. Even talking on here feels quite taxing, and I'll have to see if this is useful and if I even upload this. I was recently diagnosed with autism, or being on the spectrum. So that's one thing that's been something to process. And it's not so much the diagnosis of that, although there is sort of feelings around that as well, and accepting sort of those challenges, and the way I am at the moment. It's more just sort of dealing with the symptoms that have sort of either gotten worse or, I guess more accurately, perhaps more revealed, or there's been less sort of wellness in me to compensate for those symptoms. And today I've got a doctor's appointment to submit a ADHD, got it right here actually, what's it called? A adult ADHD self-report scale symptom checklist. So I think it's just a first step in that sort of pathway to get assessed for that. And it was something the psychiatrist actually put me forward for. Even the autism stuff, I didn't know if I actively sought that out. I think at the time I was looking for answers. I felt like I was going a bit insane as everything was getting more intense and the symptoms were feeling more intense, and it was trying to find answers of what's going on. And so the psychiatrist in the autism assessment said quite often there's overlapping symptoms, and sometimes it's worth being assessed for that. I guess there's relief in the diagnosis, because it allows me not to be as hard on myself for things, for just how my life is at the moment and my standards and what I thought my life would be like, or where I should be, or it just gives a bit of context to that, instead of just sort of trying to make sense of it through anxiety and depression, which can be very vague and very expansive, and sometimes it just feels that doesn't make sense. But with sort of the autistic symptoms and those things, it makes a lot of sense. Even recording this just feels so different to, I don't know if it's been like a year since I recorded last time, and just how I'm feeling now, and how it's so difficult to communicate and to get my words out. Feels like there's so much that I want to share, but just there isn't a capacity to kind of just sort of let it flow, I guess. I think there's like a psychological term for it, I think, where there's almost like a funnel, I guess, so, but it's in the other way around, so there's like lots of stuff, you know, going on, but there's like only a small sort of like a bottleneck coming out. This is also weird as well because I can't see myself as I'm recording, so I think I noticed on my front camera the resolution's not that great, so I feel a lot more self-conscious now, not being able to check how I'm looking, or so that's something to get used to, and I'm not sure how often I'm going to record after this, or when, or so yeah, that's one thing I've sort of been dealing with recently, as symptoms have increased, and trying to process that diagnosis as well. And I think when I was first told that, I did sort of go through and think about early parts of my life where things didn't make sense, or there was clear sort of indicators there, and think, oh, okay, that matches with that, and but I haven't sort of done that as much recently. I've just sort of been lost in just not feeling too well. So I'm still dealing with long COVID. I can't remember if I vlogged about that last time, but it's been over a year since I've been dealing with long COVID, and that has, the way that manifests in me is lots of brain fog. It somehow blends with the autistic stuff of overwhelm and sensitivities, and it's hard to separate that, but and physical fatigue as well, where my body just feels really weak, and like body feels really rigid as well. So yeah, each day at the moment it's like a huge challenge in itself, and just literally trying to take things one day at a time. And I'm trying to get used to things just falling away. It feels like before, when things were less intense, I was able to sort of have some consistency with activities. So whether it's writing, like fiction writing, or working with tarot cards, or doing my spiritual podcast, which I'd been doing for a number of years, And so all of these things have just fallen away in like a really sort of painful way, where I've tried to sort of keep up with stuff just to have some purpose and purpose to my day. But I realised it was just adding too much stress. So I've tried to accept that when I want to do any of those things, I can just do them and not get caught up in the consistency, as natural as that feels, to have sort of growth and progress in doing something. So even with this vlog here, like, perhaps I'm feeling a bit tired today, but usually maybe I'd have something in my mind think, okay, perhaps I can record more consistently, and just sort of those recordings would be meaningful in some way to have. But yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to even upload this, or if when I'm next going to record, or I just have to sort of go with how I'm feeling in the moment and what feels healthy and not stressful. And so the one activity I've kind of picked up recently again is writing. I started a novel probably maybe a year ago, somewhere maybe more or less, and so I've been doing that, but in a very slow and painful way, like sometimes just a few sentences on a day that I do write, or a few paragraphs, and I've just tried to just accept that as well, and also accept the capacity I have for writing. It's so much less than it was. I had this image this morning of like sort of driving, what it's like. It's kind of like driving and the windscreen is all covered in ice, but it's a small, like a gap where I can try and look through of where I'm going, and that's what it feels like for writing at the moment. It's so like precarious and so like trying to find the words, but yeah, I'm just not being able to access any of my ability to write, or very small amount, and I've just tried to accept that as well, and not try and look too far ahead, because part of my mind still thinks, okay, perhaps I can work towards sending this off to an agent, or going back over my previous books and resubmitting those to an agency. And for a second the idea feels good, it feels, yeah, I can, but then there's no sort of purchase behind that, there's no weight of reality behind that, where I feel like realistically it's too much to kind of have in my mind to think about. I can sort of, sort of barely take care of myself, of my food, and just getting through the day, and all of my energy sort of going into that, really. And so it almost feels like I'm kind of suffocating with not being able to sort of engage in life, really, even look at sort of connecting with people. It's getting more and more difficult to do. And it's really tricky as well, because I find I need connection, but I quickly get overwhelmed and quickly get exhausted as well. So it's a real something I'm probably going to read up on and learn more about, especially with sort of people who are autistic. So I'm finding that balance really, really difficult, especially I'm sort of used to my own time as well. doesn't feel good to do right now, recording. Just feel really awkward and really like I'm just scratching the surface of what I'm trying to convey or articulate, and it just feels frustrating. I don't want to record for the sake of recording. I'd rather do it. There's some benefit to me recording. There's some, but also I'm going to try not to sort of judge quickly. Maybe it will take, if I do record again, it will take some warming up to do, and to get used to trying to talk about what I'm going through, what I'm dealing with, and maybe it's not going to magically just sort of feel really good. So maybe it's worthwhile just sort of me not judging too quickly at the same time. It does feel like I'm not really making sense, or I'm just jumping about, and it just feels like a bit of a scattered sort of vlog. It does feel nice to try and not like sort of create interesting content while recording this if I do upload it. I've been getting into more reading lately, and that's been something that's been good to do, even though reading's a struggle and it takes a lot of energy, and I can only read in short bursts, and it's frustrating, but it also keeps me going, even if I'm doing short bursts of reading throughout the day. I started watching videos by people who talk about books, like the books they're reading each month, and so yeah, sometimes it can be overwhelming because it can be, I think it's my sensitivities, but it can feel quite shouty and quite intense, and people talking really fast, and sometimes I find that it's sometimes nice to watch that content because it's something that's not so triggering. It's like gentle to the subject of books and talking about books, but yeah, sometimes it can be quite, I don't know if YouTube's like that in general, I guess, with just the machine and creating content where having really standout thumbnails and the whole, I guess machine's a good word to put there, the algorithm and a type of content to make engaging content. And this feels like almost a bit of like an anti-YouTube, or the opposite of the YouTube sort of manual or guidebook of creating something. So it just feels like I'm sort of sadly sort of talking about lots of different things, and it's in some ways it's not interesting or engaging, so it's or if I can imagine if anyone is still watching, it's a very niche audience of maybe someone going through something similar, but I guess that's what this space is created for, not for entertainment in that way, and not for, I guess, not for anyone in one respect. It's just just a I guess a channel name says it all in that way. So today I've got an appointment in the afternoon, which it's with a different doctor, not my usual doctor, so I feel a little bit on edge about that, even though when I made the appointment I requested that it be with my doctor, but it didn't seem to happen, and I tried calling to to get my appointment changed so I could see my doctor, but there was like hold times, and then when I got through to them, my reception wasn't good here, and then it just became too much to do, and so I just decided to keep the appointment with this other doctor. And I'm hoping that they're aware of the ADHD sort of pathway of steps. Like, so I think with the form, this symptom checklist form that I filled in, they've got to submit that to one of the psychiatry places that I'm linked to, and I think they've got to write a letter or something as well. So yeah, I'm hoping they're aware of that, or they can do that for me. So I've got that in the afternoon. It's still like kind of coming into late morning, so I'm going to do a bit of reading. I'm going to try and maybe do a bit of writing. There's something about being, maybe because of this space, it's quite an enclosed space, that it just feels like it's hard to sit down and write. It's funny because I almost feel like these ADHD symptoms that I've listed here, the one about not being able to sort of concentrate on stuff, I find that here so much when I'm writing. It's only like if I'm at the library where I just have my like notepad and pen and there's nothing else to do but write. That kind of helps a lot. But I just don't have it in me to go out to the library. I'm kind of thinking about lunchtime and sort of making myself a healthy lunch, and just feels too much to calculate of, I don't have the energy to quickly go out now and write for a couple of hours and come back, or I did possibly have it in my mind to kind of leave after lunch and then having a bit of time to write before my appointment, but yeah, it just feels, I don't know what I can manage. This feels a bit too far ahead for me to sort of think and have any clear intentions. So I may try and write here, like in a really accessible way, like set like a 10-minute timer and just say, okay, for 10 minutes, just sort of have my writing open, and even if I'm not writing, but just don't do anything else for those 10 minutes and see how that goes. Maybe that would be quite healthy, just to try and have like a little mini immersion in something, even if it's just staring at the screen, but there's some consistency there. I'm not sort of jumping from activity, and and I may try and watch a film this evening. That's something that I struggled in the past a lot, just to sit myself down for. I think it would be really healthy to do, to just have that singular time of doing one activity, which I think I struggle with a lot at the moment. Just jumping from one thing to another and not being able to settle in something. And partly it's difficult because, for instance, with reading, after like a certain amount of time, I'll get quite exhausted from reading, so I won't be able to continue, and so that kind of prompts me to move on to something else, where really it would be great if I was able to sort of read for like an hour or more, and just sort of get immersed, and that would be quite calming if I was able to do that. I think I'm going to wrap this up now. It just doesn't feel like it's just getting harder to try and think of what to talk about or what to say, even though there's so much that's not been said. it's one thing that's strange as well, because when I was thinking about recording, there'll be stuff going through my head that I want to say, and it was so clear. And I thought, oh, that'd be great to kind of try and share and just sort of say it out loud. But then now I'm here, it's all a jumble, and it's all like nothing's ever clear as it is when it kind of goes through my head. It kind of filters through and comes out, and I have to speak it. It's not there. It's a bit frustrating. Maybe I did have the thought of maybe trying to record again just to see how that goes, because this feels like a bit of a disaster, or just doesn't feel. Yeah, this feels like painful to do. So obviously I don't want to cause more sort of stress and something that's stressful. So yeah, I think I'm going to end it here, and yeah, I'll see if I record again.